passengers, and welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License with service to A Bunker in Durnsville, Indiana, and Unbreakable, Kimmy Schmidt. We ask that you please fasten your headphones, secure your podcasting device, and remember that, hey, if you have been stuck in a bunker for the past 15 years, welcome to the TV Pilot's License, the only and most popular TV rewatch podcast ever, and don't let anyone ever tell you differently.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Kerbis, joined by Max Singer. Max, how you doing today, bud?
Oh man, we get to talk about a nice Christmas time pilot today. I'm so excited.
Yes, well, Max, this week we are going to be talking a little bit more in depth about Netflix's Unbreakable, Kimmy Schmidt. But before we do so, for folks who might be here for the first time, for folks who are just finding out about us because they were in a bunker, what is the TV Pilot's License all about?
As Jeff said, this is the only TV recap podcast on the entire internet. Don't go looking for any else. Also, we'll explain to you what a podcast is later on. Yeah. Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learned more about how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes and making us want to watch more if they could be made today. Go back and stream our old episodes from wherever you listen to podcasts. Check us out on YouTube and TikTok to see our smiling faces. We'll explain what TikTok is later as well. And if it's your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
I am just thinking about the idea of trying to backtrack of what social media platforms existed 15 years ago, Max, and I think we just had the beginning days of Twitter, which is now X, unfortunately. Facebook and Instagram hadn't started yet, which is insane.
Yeah, we were post you need to get an invite to join Facebook. I think at this point you could post directly to Twitter. You didn't have to send it from your phone to a text message number to post it to your account.
Especially when you had like the QWERTY keyboards and you had to type a text. It was like 150 characters, plenty. Don't tell me to do any more or any less.
Yeah, I should say if we're from 15 years out from a bunker from right now 26, we're definitely getting into early Instagram territory. I think we might have been starting to see Vine pop up around this time as well.
I think we were just around Vine, which then, we could talk about Musical.ly turning into TikTok, but that was like 2015 or 16, I think. But, who knows? And it's all going to hell and burning, and we're all burning, and it's all social media all the time.
We're definitely going to be talking about some social media trends that are a decade plus old today, so I'm very excited to get into those.
Well, Max, before we get into social media trends or Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, a quick word from our sponsor.
Hey there, frequent flyers. This week's episode is brought to you by Riverside. Riverside has been the go-to platform for TV Pilot's License when it comes to recording this podcast. You can record crystal clear audio and video all in one place, and when you're done, Riverside makes it super easy to edit your show and put together pre-formatted clips for social media promotion. Not a podcaster? Not a problem. Riverside is fantastic for hosting live streams, creating educational content, putting together marketing materials, interviews, and so much more. So whether you're looking to finally get that podcast idea off the ground or take your show to the next level, Riverside is the platform for you. Get started by clicking the Riverside link in the description of today's episode.
Well, let's dive into Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and we're going to start off with a quick synopsis. A woman is rescued from a doomsday cult and starts life over again in New York City, which, of all of the synopsises that we've done, sounds the most like a Mad Lib, at least in my opinion. But Max, can you tell us a little bit more about how this show got made?
Today, we're talking about the pilot episode of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt titled Kimmy Goes Outside, which originally aired on March 6, 2015 on Netflix, and the show's creators Robert Carlock and Tina Fey. Carlock and Fey's creative partnership dates back to their time at Saturday Night Live. Carlock joined the writing staff in 1996 after a tenure on The Dana Carvey Show, while Fey was hired in 1997 and promoted to head writer in 1999 following Adam McKay's departure from the show. Carlock left SNL in 2001 to work on Friends and the spin-off Joey before returning to New York to help develop an untitled Tina Fey project in the mid-2000s that would better be known as 30 Rock. Carlock would serve as co-showrunner with Fey on the series. Post 30 Rock, the duo have a pilot called Cabot College, which sparked a bidding war before eventually landing at Fox, although the network surprisingly passed on it. They are then asked by NBC executives to develop a show for Ellie Kemper, who had seen a rise to fame for her work on The Office, Bridesmaids, and 21 Jump Street. The show is developed in the framework of classic comedies like The Mary Tyler Moore Show and That Girl, with a single young woman working hard to make it in the big city, but with one little twist. Before settling on an apocalyptic bunker, Kimmy emerging from a coma was another possible storyline for the show. One influence on Kemper in developing the character was Elizabeth Smart's memoir, which is the least funny thing we're going to say in this episode. Smart wrote that in even the depths of hell, she would try to think of one thing she was grateful every night before going to sleep. Kemper took this as an influence for Kimmy's demeanor. Picked up in October 2013 under the working title Tooken, this show was given a 13-episode order at NBC. The show's title would be changed to Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt the following May. While filming the first season, NBC executives told Carlock and Faye they were leaning on a heavy drama lineup for fall and didn't have much room for new comedies. While the show had a time slot, there were talks of pushing it to next summer, being a mid-season replacement, or possibly being bumped into a 10 p.m. time slot. The full film season was then sold to Netflix, who gave it a 2-season commitment. Today's pilot is directed by Tristan Shapiro, who also helmed the pilot of Never Have I Ever, which you've discussed on this podcast. He is also known for his work on Veep, Community, and has received 8 BAFTA nominations for his work on comedies in the UK.
So, Max, before we dive into this pilot, we've watched this show, and I guess I have the question for you of, could you imagine the pilot that we just watched being on NBC? Like being in its current version on NBC in any form?
I mean, yeah, because from what I understand, they got like 12 episodes in before moves started to happen. So, I mean, this was a picked up to series order NBC show, and which is crazy. Yeah, it is crazy to think that you shoot 12 or so episodes of a season and then realize that you don't have a place for this, or it's just not in the cards for where you're going as a network. And at the time when this came out, it felt very novel for a show like this to be on a streamer. And we're 2 years removed from the end of 30 Rock at this point. That show ended in 13, and the Cabot College thing happening, but like this is the comeback for Tina Fey. This is the next big project. People are chomping at the bit, and yeah, it feels bold for it to be on Netflix, which is no longer the case. But at the time, it felt like radical in a way.
Yeah, and also the thing that's just on my mind is some of the jokes that are in this pilot, and I think for us to be able to talk about them, or rather than, jump around them or hop around the concepts, is let's dive into the show, and let's start off with me forgetting how this pilot starts, which is we start off in the bunker on what we are told is Christmas Day, and seeing maybe just a small glimpse of what the past 15 years have been like for there to be a rescuing. And Max, what are your thoughts on the first couple moments of this pilot?
A SWAT team is one heck of a way to introduce why is today different, that's for sure.
And I mean, was I at first tricked? Because I was like, where the fuck is the theme song that I love so much, and we're going to talk about, when they just showed the title card at the beginning. But then to get this organic, seeing a meme of sorts, something of forgotten past of, I remember us both being in school and something would happen on the news and someone would decide that is actually a song. So do you think it dates this show to make the theme song an auto-tune remix song, or does it fit the show even better?
I mean, yes to both. They get the actual Gregory brothers who were behind so many of those viral auto-tune the news videos, but it definitely does date it, because that's such a specific time period of internet, even though they had another hit a couple years ago with the Corn Kid. He loved corn. What can we say? America loved that kid, and that kid loved corn. But it definitely is such a specific with how fast the internet moves these days that it does feel dated. I got a chuckle out of this person being interviewed and it just going into auto-tune, and this notion of like, oh, it's not even like someone remixed it and auto-tuned
Yeah.
the news. This is just how this person speaks. This is just like, these are the rules of this world and how things operate, which I did think was charming in a way, if you want to believe that logic.
Well, based off of the idea that, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt has chosen to have the auto-tune the news be its theme song, I guess it leads to a very simple question. You mentioned It's Corn, but do you have an auto-tune the news song that is close to your heart? Maybe something that is a forgotten gem of the past?
Oh man. I mean, oh god, what is the I'm blanking on these now.
Well, Max
Yeah,
is
you
thinking of this. I'm going to go with the classic "Hide Your Wife, Hide Your Kids."
Yes, that's it. The intruder one. Yes,
The
that was the one I was
Intruder.
trying to
I think that
of.
the Intruder was such a specific moment in time, and then because there was an age that I hope the entire audience goes back with me on this, where the age of E-Bombs World, where you'd see these news clips before YouTube was really a thing, and someone would be like the leprechaun clip, right? Which I think is just such a famous newsreel. And if it was the time of autotune, would 100% be a banger that we listen to all of the time. Did everyone see the leprechaun? If you saw the leprechaun, say yeah. Yeah.
With this though, with the auto-tune news, with the way this theme song is presented from a character we meet, I'm noticing in hindsight that this is kind of a trend of what Robert Carlock has been doing on subsequent shows that he either creates or produces, because I think about this, Girls 5 Eva, and Fall and Rise of Reggie Dinkins, which are both shows that are created by people who were writers on Kimmy Schmidt, with Carlock as a producer. And in Girls 5 Eva, you have a theme song, which is the hit song of the band Girls 5 Eva, and it's introduced as a music video on that show. And in Fall of Rise of Reggie Dinkins, it's Reggie's new fiance, Brina's, attempt at having an R&B TikTok hit. And you hear her sing it before it becomes the theme song. And I like this trend in Carlock shows of how theme songs are snippets of characters, and the way the first time we hear them, they're all introduced in some sort of organic way as part of the script. It's just a fun little calling card that I'm finding with him.
Well, Max, very similar to how auto-tune meme news songs were part of the 2010s, I want to talk about something else that was very familiar about the 2010s, which was if you were a white woman that was saved, rescued, maybe found after years in a bunker, you also were interviewed by Matt Lauer. And I mean, we've talked about Matt Lauer on this podcast. And did you also experience the shock of seeing that man interview?
Well, I didn't want to give this away. I didn't want to give away this jump scare that happened to me. But when you asked, could you picture this show airing on NBC? I wanted to be like, yeah, because it's the only reason why Matt Lauer would be in this.
But what did you? I personally, I found if this was someone other than Matt Lauer, I actually really enjoyed this scene of having the experience of the puff piece of we've done the morning show, we've talked about it. I recommend going back and listening to that episode, but seeing that from delivered by someone who was actually on the news was an enjoyable little tidbit. But there was one line, and Max, I wonder if you caught this one as well, that really caught me and sort of put me in a little bit of a sour mood, which was when Matt Lauer said, "I'm always amazed at what women will do because they're afraid of being rude." And brother,
Buddy,
what?
that hit me like a ton of bricks when he said that.
What did Tina Fey know? I would like to know. What did Tina Fey know that I didn't know at that time? Or was she just letting out the dirty laundry because she was like, well, Matt's talking, so he's going to say this line.
Again, I know comedy is subjective. Comedy moves fast. Do things always hold up? Yes, no, in different ways. But the auto-tune news and Matt Lauer and that very dark in hindsight Matt Lauer line are not doing this show favors in its first 3 minutes.
I mean, but did you like the comedy of the scene, though? Because this is the first instance where I think we really get into Tina Fey writing, right? Where we really start to get the flavor of what this show is going to be, where like there's the mentions of the nickname being the Indiana Mole Women, which, you know, we can talk about that in depth if you'd like, but I think this is where we first start to get a taste of the comedy that will be ensuing in this pilot.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. It's where we start to really establish like the tone of this world, from the mole women to the refusal of the makeover, and then the smash cut to the ambushed makeover being so over the top, as they call it. What I like about Kimmy Schmidt and what I like about subsequent Carlock and Faye produced sitcoms is that they exist in these weird worlds where characters work really hard to justify their decisions, and they have these like rules and codes that back them up. And I think the difference between this and 30 Rock is that in early 30 Rock, Tina Fey, Liz Lemon, is very much the straight man who is surrounded by a lot of odd characters. And here from the jump, it's like we are in an alternate New York City. We are in alternate America. Like we are in this version where all of these silly things are just accepted, and they're well explained and they're well justified, so that they always feel grounded.
Well, let's talk about the most grounded city in the world, right? Which is New York City, and Kimmy deciding that she does not want to be an Indiana Mole Woman anymore. Instead, she wants to try life out in New York with a middle school education, which, Max, I'm curious, do you think with the middle school education you had, especially growing up in the tri-state area surrounding New York, that you would be able to do better than Kimmy?
Oh, I mean, I was smooth talking. I was a smart aleck. I think I could have made it. Yeah, but it's not just that. She's a middle school education. It's that she has an entire like warped, contested view of reality and society and conventional norms that she has going against her. And yes, it's going to be a fun game. It's what are all of the things that essentially a middle schooler would want to do if they were given a backpack full of money and free reign and free will. And this is essentially like a kind of warped take on Tom Hanks and Big is what it feels like to me in this first montage. It's dark Big.
Yeah, like going to Dylan's Candy Bar is something.
Another blast from the past.
Yeah, when I saw that logo, I almost went into shock, because I don't think I've seen that logo since this pilot in 2015, in all honesty. Like, it's such a fun montage to be able to give us, of being able to like try to suspend our disbelief in this wacky version of New York that is dark, as you said, dark Big in this instance. But there are some things that Kimmy does realize she has to do, and I'm curious for you. We start to meet more of this main ensemble for this show. And how did you enjoy having Carol Kane in this pilot?
God, I love her. This is a star-studded ensemble for sure, and I appreciate that all of the challenges that Kimmy faces are all things that move the plot forward. They're all things that we're always moving Kimmy's journey forward, which I think is really important, because like we establish her beliefs, we get into character background, and now we're layering that, we're world building. Everything about the apartment. Carol Kane is absolutely a riot as Lillian. Titus Burgess as Titus Andromedon, her soon-to-be roommate's incredible. Her future employer, who we get to know soon after, is an absolute delight, and we'll get into that. But yeah, I think that on top of it all, Kemper sells this role, which I think could be a very difficult tightrope to walk, with how physical she is, how much she shows it on her face, and how much she seems to just go with everything. There's such an excitement to react and say yes to the world around her, which is really charming to watch.
But also, one of the things that I love about this ensemble is this is an ensemble where and this is a show that allows for you to believe that, like, hey, not everyone's going to get along on this show. It's actually them being able to disagree with each other or have differences with each other, but make it funny, that is going to propel this pilot forward. Like the instance where we have Carol Kane or Lillian and Titus yelling at each other, and even though they are yelling over each other, there are small little snippets of lines that are in there that are just so fucking funny. And it's just such a well done pairing of saying, well, these two know each other, and Kimmy's going to know both of them, and she's not necessarily going to have chemistry, but it's going to be something a little bit different, refreshing, and that's not even mentioning Jane Krakowski's character in here. And what did you think of the flavor that Jane as Jacqueline brought into this show on a different side of the world, maybe a little bit of a bougier Upper East Side of New York?
I love Jane Krakowski so much. Her never getting an Emmy as Jenna Maroney, I think, is one of the great TV travesties of the 21st century. And she knows how to play this dialogue and play this character so well. And it's fun to play a different type of New York stereotype, because what Titus and Lillian are doing is very much a like type of New Yorker, which is super fun. And to just put Kimmy into different subsets of society and this other world with Jacqueline is super fun. All three of these supporting characters to me feel like they have such strong philosophies and such like strong moral convictions and sets of rules that make it lived in. And they are surprisingly lived in supporting characters from the get-go, which we don't often get to see in pilot episodes.
Yeah, and even though Krakowski is not in this that much, the moments that we get her she's such a star. She takes over the scene. It is so hard not to just focus on what she is doing, because she takes up the entire space, not only with the ridiculousness of the dialogue that she is given, but just with the choices that she makes. And it's so much fun to watch that. But, Max, I'm curious. You are dropped off in New York. You have a bag full of cash. Let's say approximately like $30,000 on you. What's the first thing that you're going to do when you have a free night in your new apartment?
Oh man, I'm getting like the Home Alone 2 pizza special. I'm getting the cheesiest pie you've ever seen, buddy.
Well, our protagonist Kimmy decides to go clubbing, and I would be remiss if I did not say that we see a TVPL guest alum very much having a predominant role in this club scene. So shout out to James Cocker for being in this pilot, because I literally, this is no lie, I texted you. I was like, Max, I got a surprise for you. And you thought it was something that you were actually going to benefit from, and you did. You got to see James on screen.
Yeah, if you want to see a TVPL love James Coker hit on Ellie Kemper at a nightclub, check out the pilot of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt on Netflix. If you want to hear him talk about Drive to Survive, also on Netflix, check out our TV Pilot Slices episode on cars going zoom, zoom, zoom.
But I thought that this club scene was maybe the first instance that we see all is lost, right? We see Kimmy actually have to deal with the real world and the consequences of being like a middle schooler. And what did you think of seeing the after effects of this all is lost? Maybe Kimmy realizing New York might not be for her. She should potentially move back to Indiana.
We get a real trifecta of things that could break this character. She has lost all of her money. She is fired from her job, and she breaks the blinds in her window. And I felt, one of these things is obviously the most serious. And I felt for the character in this moment, because with a character like Kimmy, who exists in this kind of blissful naivete in a way, at some point you have to press them, you have to challenge them, and see how they react to it. And I think that in this moment, Ellie Kemper plays the gravity of the situation very well. I love this monologue from Titus Burgess on how escaping isn't making it and giving you some insight into his backstory while wearing a fantastic Starlight Express tank top. And I think that we talk a lot about like wanting to see the other side of characters and pilots, like you want to see like a more rounded portrayal. And this is where we get it. This is where we see humanity and depth and an attempt to, even in the thick Tina Fey comedy, play something a little more serious. And both of them really excel in it. And to me, it's like, oh, I can be invested in both of these characters because they don't feel one note. They feel human even in this weird world in which they exist. What about you?
Yeah, and like the continuation of this scene of seeing Kimmy look and find a rat in a trash can, which, you know, that's why you don't look in a trash can if you're in New York. I don't recommend it. Also, don't walk through Washington Square Park at night if you don't like rats. These are side notes for your trip to New York. But that small flashback moment of Kimmy being the person who persevered, who believed, to give us a little bit more of an idea of how Kimmy was able to survive, even though we know that she survives this encounter. I think it's exactly what this pilot needs, because it goes back to the idea of, if we're just doing joke, if we're not adding some, you know, depth, as you mentioned, or some stakes of some sort, then why am I tuning in every week if it's just going to be like, there are other things I can listen to, I can watch if I just want joke after joke after joke. But to be able to be given these stakes, be given these characters who have this range of emotions that we can depend on them going through, or possibly see what built them as the people they are, that to me is really, really special.
And something that I appreciated here is we get the one flashback to Kimmy in the bunker, this one moment of showing that she is someone who does have the ability to persevere, that there's something still inside her even after 15 years. We get the little drop of the title where she is called Unbreakable by a faceless cameo that sounds rather familiar to me. And I appreciate the restraint that's the only flashback sequence in this pilot. Because obviously 30 Rock is built on a lot of flashback and callback jokes. Subsequent ones from Carlock, like Girls 5 Eva and Reggie Dinkins, are also very heavily built on callback gags, and like both callback and like flashback gags. And to only do it once, and to use it to not just be like a joke, but to actually reveal something important about the character, it felt like nice restraint, and it felt like the use of it was earned in a way that, even if I think it might become more prevalent as the show goes on, it was done in a very tasteful way in this, to not lose sight of the pilot of it all.
Well, Max, Kimmy decides to persevere. This pilot ends on a high note of singing in Times Square, even though you're drowned out because you are just one small story amongst many in this city that doesn't sleep. But I'm curious, we talked a lot about this pilot. Are there any things that you loved about this pilot that maybe you'd like to give a little bit more shine to?
Two super quick ones. Kimmy's line at the nightclub of, "Are you into Molly? Are you kidding? She's my favorite American Girl doll."
Yes.
It's just like, it's such a simple joke. And to me, I was like, oh, how would Kimmy respond to all these things? Like, that's such a fun, like, whiteboard game to play. I also love when we meet Lillian and she's describing Titus, and she just starts listing off all of these, like, character descriptors, like very specific one-liners. And it reminds me of almost what they did with the pilot of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where Terry Crews is just listing off like the one-liners for every single character. I like when we basically read off casting notes in a script to describe people in a pilot. It's very silly. It's not how people talk, but it always makes me chuckle as a trope in a comedy pilot.
It's been a long time since I've talked about laundry folding shows, which seemed to be something that we talked about often when we started this podcast.
Geoff, when's the last time you did your laundry?
Max, I'm staring at it right now. We need to watch a laundry folding show like next week.
The pile's
possibly.
getting bigger and bigger. It's taking over the whole room.
Exactly. It's taking over my house. But this show is not a laundry folding show. There are such small, great jokes and gags that are thrown in, hidden. You have to be paying attention to the screen. Imagine a world, Max, where you aren't just staring at your phone while listening or watching TV, hoping for a reference that gives you the exposition you need, but instead capturing jokes like the different news chyrons that were going on when they discovered the mole women. Some of the stuff that they had going on in the background of Times Square were absolutely absurd. And that's just it. I hate to sound like an old man. I miss TV where you have to watch the actual things that are going on screen and people don't just explain it to you over and over again over 42 minutes. Sue me. Go ahead, please. Sue me. I cannot afford a lawyer. I hope you provide that one. But Max, I'm curious. Were there any wait a minute moments with this pilot? You don't have to give me one, but I always ask just in case.
I do. And it's not the fault of the show. It's just a product of everything that's happened the decades since, which is when this pilot ends with Kimmy and Titus in Times Square belting out Circle of Life from the Lion King while New York passes them by. And I felt like this was such a power of positivity Obama core piece of media.
Holy shit.
And all of a sudden, I had 2 tickets to Hamilton in one hand and a copy of Chance the Rapper's coloring book in the other hand.
Oh.
And I was watching Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. And it is not the fault of anyone involved. I think this is a very, very well-made pilot. But I was just taken to this blissful optimism that existed in a lot of pop culture and media in the mid-10s that has been unfortunately taken and just like crushed and stomped and ground by cynicism and hyper-realism and things like that. So while I thoroughly enjoyed this, I couldn't help but wonder, is this show a product of its times and has it been dated by factors that are out of its control?
Yeah. For me, I love that our complaint is this show is too positive, almost even though. But for me, on a slightly lighter side of the coin.
Oh, you don't want to dive more into to politics and pop culture and how the last decade has warped our collective minds and how we make and produce media now? No, okay, fine. We'll talk about something else.
Yeah, I can't believe that Kimmy didn't visit the Apple store because I think that there were so many jokes there. No, I'm kidding. The idea of the Matt Lauer in this show is so insane to me. It is so bonkers banana pants because here's my additional thing. This is just me being a Today Show family. I'm curious if for the folks at home, let me know if you were a Good Morning America or a Today Show family person, but Matt Lauer was never the interview on the couch guy. Matt Lauer was never that dude. Matt has a personality, but it's the personality of your friend's dad who you say hi to and then you don't see the rest of the day that you're at your friend's house. He is not the guy who just hangs out and you want to chill with. Instead, he says really off-putting shit or he's a little bit too serious. And, maybe would it have been better if it was Hoda? Probably. I would have loved some Hoda hoedown in this situation. But Max, we have one more question, and it's an in-flight question. Our in-flight question came to my Instagram from John in Ohio, and John asked, if you just got released from a bunker after 15 years, what would you be most shocked by? And how do you think you would do in the real world? So, Max, take yourself back. You're what, like 19, maybe just about 20. How are you doing, and what is the thing that is scaring the shit out of you the most?
Oh, wait, did I just get out of the bunker, or when did I get out of the bunker?
You just got out of the bunker. Right now.
Who is president?
Today.
I'm sorry. What happened? We voted for who?
Twice?
The guy who used to go on the Howard Stern show all the time and sold board games and did reality TV. The guy who sang Green Acres at the Emmys with Megan Mullally.
Oh
you did what?
You're talking about an Emmy winner right there. Yeah, as far as myself, I definitely would be a little bit shocked at the idea of not only who was in government, but also potentially if you told me that the Gulf of Mexico on some maps was called the Gulf of America, I would tell you you're illiterate. But that's just me, and I would be the wrong one. But if you have an in-flight question that you'd like to submit to the podcast, you can shoot us a voicemail or leave us a text at 213-290-1713. And we actually put out a call for those on Instagram all the time, so make sure to submit them. We read every single one, and we love picking out those for the episodes.
I got one more, and it's gambling on my phone, but not by calling somebody, but not by calling a guy I know.
Yeah, gambling on your phone, and it's encouraged by television, seems a little bit off. Seems a little bit too easy, like something is wrong there. But let's talk about the history of this show. This show had 4 seasons, 52 episodes, and a special as well. Weirdly enough, while this show can be entirely found on Netflix, it's also entirely on DVD, which we've talked about this before. I don't know how to feel about streamers, shows that have been entirely streamed, being on DVD as if they were unfindable for some period of time. Really quickly, I do want to talk about awards. This show did receive 66 nominations, including 20 Primetime Emmy Award noms. It unfortunately did not win any because, remember, if you're competing for an Emmy in comedy, you're fucked because of the way that it is currently set up. But the show did win 7 awards, including a Writers Guild Award, Critics' Choice Award, and a few Gracie Allen Awards. But, Max, that's the history of this show. And before this flight comes to a land, I have 2 questions for you. And the first question, very simply, is based off of the pilot and the pilot alone, are you going to be watching more Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt? And then the second question is, you just mentioned this show has a sort of optimism about it that might be unnerving for some of those who have to look at the news on a day-to-day basis. Do you think there's a space for a show with this sort of optimism associated with it? Or maybe have we moved on? The Reggie Dinkins is currently on Peacock / on NBC. If you want to get your fill of some of the creative team behind this show, maybe there's something else that's a little bit humorous, but still a little bit darker. What are your thoughts there?
I'm definitely watching more of this. I think for me, it's about how lived in and real these characters feel. And I think that Carlock and Faye really understand what scenarios they can put them in, how they will react and respond to things that are thrown their way, and that there's something real and grounded despite how silly everything about it is, and that's enough to keep me wanting to watch more. I think that if you have those types of characters, you can do whatever you want, to kind of get to your second question. And it is not this show's fault that it gives off a certain type of sheen and veneer. It's not this show's fault that it leads into a theme song that takes a type of internet trope that was very, very popular at a certain period of time and now feels dated in hindsight. Those are just all things that let you know that this is a show of 2015. Like, when we think about shows that feel like certain periods of time, that's just what it is. And this is going to be one of those pieces of media that represents the Teds in that way. I think that they do a very good job, though, they being Carlock, Faye, and their crew, people like Scardino and Means who write on this, of making things feel positive without getting too overboard. Because there is an inherent power of positivity in the ensembles of both Dinkins and Five Eva as well, that I think is a step down from this, but is very palatable, is very satisfying, and if you could create characters as well as they do, you can get away with anything.
Yeah, for myself, I really enjoyed coming back to this pilot, and I think it definitely inspired potentially a rewatch of this entire series because there's something so special about the writing of Tina Fey and Carlock in this show. There's something that you can't quite put your your finger on it, but I think it is just a certain form of chaos that is in it almost overwhelms you like a warm hug, which we could take or leave as far as comparisons go, but as far as positivity goes, yeah, I think there's something interesting to say about that because you and I have talked about like other shows that are trying to fill that void of like, oh, they're overwhelmingly positive, but they don't quite hit the same. And I think it speaks to exactly what you said. If you have depth with your characters, if they are not as deep as a single sheet of paper, but instead maybe multiple volumes of paper, you have something there and you can get away with being positive, but make sure the positivity and the jokes are supported by the characters who are delivering them. Well, Max, that is our podcast and that is our flight. But before we go, I want to make sure that folks can find you wherever you'd like to be found. So, Max, where can folks find you?
You can catch me at the club finding out that dancing is all about butts now and on all things social media at Maxwell Sing.
And you can catch me loading up on gummy sharks at Dylan's Candy Bar, even though they're probably expired at this point in time. But if you're looking for me on social media, you can find me at Run Jeff Run. If you're looking for the TV Pilot's License, you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can also see our smiling faces on YouTube and follow us on most of those social media platforms that are new since 2011. If you have a question about the show or for our next episode, you can submit those at tvpilotslicense.com or give us a call at 213-290-1713. Make sure to watch out for some of the stuff that we have coming up, but with the plane landed and the seatbelt signed off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world again with you soon. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies and your fingers on the dial.
Females are strong as hell.